the UK is on fire at the moment with plenty of things going on. So yeah, just busy.
Yeah, no, but you have a crazy government, and you have a government that's the enemy of the people. But also, I see rising patriotism in the UK.
Correct. Yeah, we've also got a Christian revival, which needs mentioning as well, which is it's beautiful to see, especially with the recent carol service that was held in London.
Yeah.
It
Cool.
brought a lot of tears to people's eyes, and the Holy Spirit was definitely in London that day and that evening.
Well, that's good to see, because yeah, you don't want the Islamic spirit rising in the UK. We don't need that. You know what's crazy?
No.
If you think of the Norman invasion, right? I mean, granted, there were fewer people, but the Norman invasion and subjugation of England was by only 12,000 Normans. How many Muslim fighting-age men came across in little boats this year? Well, at least 46,000. So, centuries ago, the Normans, with 12,000 men, conquered all of England. This year alone, never mind last year or the 15 years prior, 46,000 men. The UK army is how big? About 60, 70,000. So in other words, you have hundreds of thousands of boat people, which are significantly larger than the UK's actual armed forces. Isn't that a scary thought?
Can I just add on to that, Lloyd, as well?
Sure.
Thank you for that comment. But it's not just those that have come over as immigrants. It will be those that are already the indigenous that would willingly support those migrants. For instance, you may have people from the left, the woke left, that are continually supporting them at the moment, verbally and politically. But you also have the indigenous members of a certain demographic that will support them for ideological reasons as well, because they will be perceived as being brothers in the faith.
You know what's crazy? You know, this is a Polish flag here above me. I mean, I live in Poland, so I support Poland. You know, you don't poop where you eat, right? And I mean, this is where I eat. So this is, you know, you dance to the one that brung you, right? So you support the country you live in. You support the country that sustains you. You know, you don't try to also turn your existing home into a facsimile of the defective place you came from. It's crazy to me. It's just really fun and crazy.
Exactly. I just wanted to say as well with the figures, I mean, maybe 40-something odd thousand this year. But if you add on over the last year or two, including legal immigration and those that haven't come here just by boats, we're looking in a total of over 1 million migrants that are here currently. And then if you include the Boris wave as well, in fact, we have had more people come to the United Kingdom in the past year than between the whole, since the Magna Carta to 1997, between that period, that whole period, from when the Magna Carta...
Over 800 years? Oh my God.
Yep.
You know what you guys need to do? You know what? I know what. You need to smash the gangs.
Yeah, sure. Like Keir Starmer has been. Well, one thing I will make a note of is we have currently, at the moment, got, I don't know if you've seen, but we actually have our very own patriotic brothers that are out in France at the moment, taking apart the dinghies, preventing these migrants from crossing over. And it's going to get bigger because people have joined and signed up to Operation Overlord 2, which is the next phase of what they're doing out there to invite other patriots to come on board. So there's going to be a bigger show of strength, if you like, that will be national, and the mainstream media can't ignore it neither.
Question: what do you guys think, Thunderous? I mean, you as a what do you guys think of this, right? If you look at the height of English colonization in India, right, how many Brits were in India? Because now apparently you must allow unlimited millions of immigrants from the third world, right? You've got to allow as many Indians as want to come in, as many Bangladeshis, Pakistanis, Afghanis, because of English immigration way back a century ago, because of colonization. England left those colonies, they walked out of them, they gave them independence. And also the maximum number in early 1930, 31, at the height of English immigration into, or colonization of India, there were only a maximum of about 164,000 English in the whole of India. don't you think it would be fair if you go, okay, well, since in Asia we had 164,000 English, how about we take this 10 million or 5 million or whatever Asian immigrants, and we toss out everybody and we leave 164,000 like for like? What do you guys think of that?
Just what you're saying there, when you're looking at when England had an empire and they had representation, if you want, of the English in certain countries, say for India as an example, one has to bear in mind it wasn't fighting age, just fighting age young men. They were taking over their wives and families as well. So, for instance, you could think of people like Joanna Lumley, famous English actress, born in India, and she's white. So it wasn't just young men going over and, if you like, causing a social upheaval within the local demographic, for instance, with sex crimes and rapes. I'm sure that possibly went on. There probably were very many barbaric incidents taking place. I could think actually of one or two anyway. But in general, it was families that went over to India, not fighting aged young men. So we are looking at something completely different with what's actually coming over into England.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. To say on that matter as well. I mean, we didn't go over there doing exactly what they're doing over here, neither, by in terms of the grooming gangs and behaving the way that the migrants do behave over here in the UK. You only have to see the actions of these men and the culture they bring with them. That is absolutely destroying our very identity and the meaning of being British. And the sad thing is if you speak about it or against it, you get yourself locked up. Mm-hmm. So
that's an interesting point Ryan raises there, because I've actually been over to Pakistan, which was up until 1947 India. So there is a lot of historical reference points that were left over from the partition. For instance, images of Queen Victoria litter the certain areas. So the British were held in high regard. One has to bear in mind, when you're looking at immigrants coming over from, say, Africa and North Africa, Africa and Bangladesh, India, I think we could really leave India out of the equation, in fairness, because when Indians do come over, they may live over in little silos, but they tend to be more interested in education and getting a job. I think, in fairness to Indians, they don't really cause a problem. And I think you can say the same for Sikhs. We are talking about Africa, North Africa, and Muslim populated countries. When they come over, they're not contributing anything realistically. So they're more parasitically taking away. If you look at, say, India and Pakistan now, though they were part of the empire, there was a contribution made. For instance, Sati, the removal of the widow throwing herself on the pyre after the husband died, that was outlawed in India. So that was a benefit. You think about the structure of the railway systems in certain countries, which was a contribution of engineering of the English mind. So when I'm not advocating for empire, I'm just saying when you look at it holistically, you're looking at benefits that have been made as contributions that have advanced the country. When you're looking at immigrations that have come over from these countries into Belgium, France, Europe, Germany, England, Australia, America and Canada, can anybody tell me what the benefits are? Because I have thus far, as a 57-year-old man, have not seen any benefits really.
Well, I mean, as soon as I think of a benefit, I will let you know.
Maybe the curry, but even then, the chicken tikka masala was invented by the British. So
we've got the recipes.
Yeah,
we got the recipes. Like Mr. Bean said, we can send them home now.
Yeah. So interesting. We have a number of things to share today as well. I mean, this one, I'm not going to play the audio, but this was in New York, right, Thunderous? This was after this guy, Mamdani, got elected. I watched this when it came out. It says, we're done hiding. We're done, right? We're done being tortured and hurt by who? And judged. This is the correct religion. This is the religion that all of humanity needs to be upon, of Islam. And we will not stop until it enters every home. I want you to repeat after me. I want to hear it. Every single district that should tremble. So, yeah, now you've got religious fundamentalists, right? Religious fundamentalists now in charge. I thought the man was a secular person. He's going to respect everybody, but I don't think he spoke out against this, right? And I think at some point they start shouting Allahu Akbar, right? Which is the terrorist chant they shout before they drive over you with the truck, or before the child explodes. Typically Allahu Akbar, which is what the terrorist chant, as I recall.
Or as we call it, Alan's snack bar. Yeah, I think with Mandani's his win, there has been a lot of videos made by Muslims living in New York and out of New York. A lot of British Muslims have been making videos saying that we are going to follow suit. However, we've also seen a massive rise in people standing up, especially in America, Texas. People there, I've been watching videos recently where some of the American patriotism is completely different to British patriotism. They take things to another level, and if needed, they will. Yeah, they will involve guns as well if they need to. They did things the other day I watched on a video that if you tried copying here in the United Kingdom, you would be locked up for a minimum 5 years. So they had a pig. They were taking little piglets and they were holding them outside the masjids or the mosques that were in Texas. And there was a woman that stood with a pig's head on a stick saying she was holding it to protect herself. There was another patriot speaker who had a Quran and was putting bacon in the middle of it. And the Muslims on the other side of the road, they were there trying to push out this peaceful agenda that we're the victims. Because they're the less at the moment. They're the few. They're not the many yet.
Yeah.
So they're pushing this narrative that Muhammad once did when he was in a prophet, where in the early stages they play the victim, they play the nice peaceful verses and all these other acts that they do that making themselves look good. But then we already know that they are a Trojan horse, and when the time comes and they have enough people behind them and enough support, that's it. They come out and they show themselves. And this social media, you cannot ignore it, whether you're on the left or on the right. The things they are saying now, these Muslim fundamentalists or scholars, dawah teams, whatever you want to call them, is undeniable. We are going to take over the West. Every home will have a Quran. Every person in the household will be a Muslim. Your children will be Muslim. You can't deny that this is taking place. So to say that they're not looking at trying to invade or conquer the West would be a very silly thing to try and claim.
Yeah, and can I just add on that? You said some really kind words at the beginning, Lloyd, about how you and I met, and we've known each other years. We met on the Gin and Tonic show, and I thank you for saying that. The reason why I'm saying that is because you and I have got a history. There are certain subjects that you've been speaking about for years, okay? While the rest of the polemicists and apologists for the biblical narrative are more interested in the men of Al-Zut and how they want to keep repeating that story, or how they want to keep repeating how Muhammad may or may have not existed, and so on and so on. Nobody other than yourself, Lloyd, has spoken about, and this is something I think I mentioned in the last show, if not the one previous to that, where you are the only person that has actually mentioned the real problem. There's two problems now I've observed, and I wanted to bring up the second one. The first one being all the social media platforms that are taken seriously, like, say for instance the Culture Forum, which is a channel I subscribe to, they're not talking about, say for instance, Al-Zut. They're not talking about the facing of the Qibla. They're not talking about whether the Kaaba existed in the 7th century or not. They're talking about the Sharia. That's what all the intellectual channels are talking about, the impact of Sharia. And the other thing that I wanted to wait until I heard further noises from it before I made comment was the financial investments from places like Qatar into the university and the political systems, which is now being discussed because I've got something.
And we spoke about that a couple of years ago, and I spoke about it prior, and we redid it. And it's to the tune of billions of dollars.
This is all now
Yeah.
because the impact of that financial investment from places like Qatar, you're seeing the fruits now being shooting forward, and they're becoming obvious now. You've got Mandani, you've got Sadiq Khan, you've got certain people in the British government now. I forget the names. You know, so you're seeing the fruits of those investments taking place within government, but nobody seems to want to talk about that. I mean, you've got, and I don't want to speak negative of those guys, the doctors of who have got doctorates, and they, you know, do apologetics and polemics, because, you know, I'll be honest, I've learned some things from them too. But they're talking about irrelevant stuff that does not impact anyone. All you're doing, you're giving some comedy value to some people. It does not affect the greater masses of people that are affected by the realities of financial investment or Sharia. It is not the men of Zut that is affecting anybody in their understanding or the impact or the influence of Islam. It is the Sharia that's impacting, and it is the financial investments of countries like Qatar. Those are the problems, and nobody wants to talk about it.
This is their playbook. The Sharia is the game plan. This is what they do. This is their manual. You follow the
memorandum.
Manual. The manual is the Sharia.
Yeah, well, like I can't remember the name of the woman in America. She's Lebanese, but she exposed the Muslim Brotherhood's memorandum and said, "Look, we're halfway through this, and we've already got, like I said, in Texas, they're trying to build Epic City, a city that is not just a local community or a silo, but is actually a whole city based just for Muslims only. So no infidel or kafir would be allowed in there. So no non-believers would be allowed to be there. And the actual 3D video that they've put out about it as well is unreal. But whilst you touched on that subject, Thunderous, about Lloyd bringing up certain things other people haven't said, this is one thing I've been trying to push for a long time, and trying to encourage other British podcasters and your YouTubers and influencers, if you like, to get on. Everybody knows about the so-called verse of with Muhammad marrying a 6-year-old. Everyone knows that, who's a non-believer. But it's the other verses that some people need to get hold of to actually realize what we're playing with here, what could become our future for our children. Stuff like that Lloyd has spoken of, that are from the reliance of the traveller, where you split the skin between a child's anus and the other front part. Verses like this, which is absolutely vile and disgusting, that if you actually brought up and shown and exposed this, you would actually show the British people, look, this is what Islam is. This is what it teaches. This is where these grooming gangs and these horrible people get their ideas from. And this is what we need to stop and stand in front of and expose.
Yeah, people need to. I was able to do a short show on Working Class Patriot. There was some white British woman who'd converted to Islam, was an apologist for Islam, and she was lying through her teeth. And obviously the people on the stream had some knowledge of Islam, but clearly not my level of knowledge. And so I went on, and because they were allowing callers to come on the Working Class Patriot channel, and I went on, and they let me in. And the moment I popped up, she just hopped right off, and she stayed only in the chat. And she was man. And then they kept saying, please come back on, because I started screen sharing, and I started showing the Sharia, and I started talking, and she refused to come back on. She said, no, I have to leave. I've got to go. I had to go suddenly. I have to go somewhere. Can't stay now. But she stayed in the chat, heckling away, but she wouldn't come on. So obviously, but yeah, she really, yeah. But look,
they hate confrontation. They really do. And they get stuck.
But if you know the guys on Working Class Patriot channel, I mean, maybe they can just arrange a show where I just come on. Maybe you and I go on, and we go through the Sharia. That might be useful to get it out to more people to understand, because they were shocked at what they saw. So
yeah. Well, I've messaged many people asking them if they would discuss some of these verses, because obviously I've screenshot them. I've seen the more uglier verses. For instance, Muhammad sucking his nephew's tongue. All sorts of, these little things. They might sound hilarious to us, but in when we're actually coming to it, this is practiced.
You know,
There are families that parents. There was a video I seen today where a Muslim man admitted that he's stuck his tongue in his children's mouths when he kisses them goodbye to go to school.
Oh my fuck! Sorry, that's gross. You know, I have a nephew. He's 8 years old. He's an awesome kid. I've known him since he was born. I mean, you know, I've watched this kid grow up, and you know, we're really close in family. And I mean, I see him once a week. I teach him English. You know, and it just grosses me out to think some guy's going to try and stick his tongue in his mouth. You know, it just sickens me to think of that. It's like I pity the man who tries to hurt that boy.
Yeah. Can I just add on this as well, that just going back to the video that you showed of the preacher in New York, and then you listen to, I forget the lady that's in the Somalian member of Congress, is it?
Omar.
Omar, whatever. I think she married her brother or something. Whatever the situation is, I think one has to bear in mind as well is the perception of the Muslim world when they're seeing traction gained in the West and they're listening to Western politicians. For instance, after the attack in, in Bondi Beach attack, the rhetoric seemed to be more against the right wing. Now, statistically,
5,000 words. They never once said Islam, Muslims, or jihad, and then they twice condemned the far right. And you're like,
far right. Was it this week? Some statistics have come out about terrorist attacks within the last, say, since 2001, and nearly all the terrorist attacks have been attributed either to Islamic fundamentalism or Islamically inspired, or the left. Hardly anything has come out from what would be perceived as the far right, as far as far right terrorism is concerned. So, but just going back to my point about the Islamic influence, what it's doing at the moment with the masses of Muslims, say, for instance, when they're seeing a terrorist attack and Western governments backing the attack basically by attacking the far right or the perceived far right or who they brand the far right, they're seeing the same things in Europe, they're seeing the same things in America, and they're definitely seeing the same things in Canada. The natural inclination is for the Muslim now is to feel emboldened, to feel powerful, because from their perception, from their mind, they will see that as Allah is blessing their ummah. You see, so when they see these influences and these growths, it is the sign of Allah is with the Muslim brotherhood now. And from their perception, that's what emboldens them even more so.
Yeah. I'm just curious on the Muslims behind this. Offensive Christmas song lyrics could be banned by labor law in the UK. People in the festive spirit may need to be careful over which Christmas songs they sing in public. You don't want to be arrested, do you? That Christmas song is a little offensive. Shouting Allahu Akbar in public is perfectly fine. And we know they will drive a truck over you while shouting that. But if you sing a Christmas song, you could go to jail.
Now, that happens once a year, or maybe you have a period in the year where that takes place. Normally, say, for instance, the 2 weeks before Christmas and maybe a few days after, that you would have this like intense carol singing, so on and so forth. Yet the call to prayer is called out 5 times a day, 365 days a week. Riddle me that one, Batman.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. The Mein Kampf has 7% of its textual content is Jew hatred. The Quran is 11%, but that's okay. You can preach from it every day.
In fact, it does make me laugh a lot, the way the left or the government perceive civic nationalists to be the far right, and because there is a massive difference between the ethno-nationalists and the civic nationalists. However, there's kind of a bridge that has been, well, it is currently being built. The more the government and the left or the woke keep, targeting civic nationalists, the more they're pushing them to go and join the ethnic nationalist side of things.
Yeah. Well, look, imagine Christmas carols. Imagine someone does get arrested for Christmas carols. Don't you think that at some point something must be the final nail and people go, we've had enough and there's not going to be civil war. We're going to riot. We're going to be ungovernable.
Well,
the song in question. Sorry,
go on, Ron. No, go on, Ron.
So I was going to say, so the song in question, I think that this comes up every year and has done for the past like 4 or 5 years. It's the Fairy Tale of New York by the Pogues, where Kirsty MacColl it lyrically says, you cheap, lazy faggot. And because faggot is a derogatory term to call a gay person, that is why that word is banned. And if you say it, it could be classed as hate speech. So people have, in fact, Tucker Carlson tried daring Piers Morgan to say it on his interview with him, but Piers wouldn't do it in respect. And he was too scared because he thought if he did and he got reported, then he would be arrested, because he knows how censored our state has become, how totalitarian it is. And we are in deep trouble. We are in deep trouble,
yep.
On the brink of civil war, I would say.
I would say that is the case. Thunders, yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I think everything you're saying there, Ron, is right. However, and I don't know if you guys would agree with me, but it's certainly in my mindset, how I see it, I think this movement towards like a civil unrest, a serious civil unrest, is a part of the plan. This is why everything is working. When you look at everything, it is working against the indigenous. It's happening in because it's a pattern. If you look at, say,
yeah, but they assume that it's inevitable anyway. I think they just assume they can control it, and I don't think that's necessarily, because violence has a tendency to escalate out of control, and I don't think they realize how much of the population is very, very angry.
I agree with you, but the reason, if you look at, say, what's happening in Australia, it is exactly the same modus operandi. The indigenous are the ones being affected, and they've got basically a Keir Starmer planted as their prime minister in Australia. You're seeing exactly the same sort of things that are happening in Europe, and I would say even worse in Canada, which is what we're going to be touching on.
I have a question. You know, France has just banned in Paris. They've cancelled their Christmas celebration. They've cancelled their New Year's because of fears of terrorist attacks. They don't think they can protect the crowd from Muslim terrorists.
That's not what they're saying, though, Lloyd. That's not what they're saying. They are going. That's not just that country. There's other countries that are banning their New Year's.
Yeah, I know. But here's a question: when last was Eid al-Adha cancelled in Germany?
Well, the thing is, when you look at those articles, they're not. I don't think I recall coming across one that actually pinpointed Islamic fundamentalism as the concern for cancelling the celebrations. They were using language almost to invoke certain demographic upheavals. For instance, it'd be the far right that's going to cause the problem, not Islamic fundamentalism or some kind of Islamic terror attack. So, when things are being written at the moment, they seem to be written as a concern for the public, but it's not. The public are not to be scared from Islam. They're supposed to be scared from something coming from the far right. That's the narrative.
The people are going to go, you know what? I'm being labeled. You know what? I don't care anymore. I am the far right now.
Yeah. People. Yeah.
It's very much like when, say, a girl gets attacked or a group of girls get attacked or raped. They don't give the identity and origin of the person that's done the attack. They'll say. They'll even use terms, and you guys are aware of this. They'll use local man arrested. Yeah, it was the local immigrant at the hotel where he's
choir boy.
Or a choir boy. Exactly. So they use linguistics to hide where the real threat is. And I think that they know that the public are wise to it now, but it aggravates the public even more, so that you're still continuing to use a technique of hiding things that we know that you're hiding, but we know you know, we know you know, kind of thing. But you're still playing the game.
Yeah. Let's move to the next one. This is the funding of the European Quran project by the European Research Council. What kind of research is this? So basically, they've got 10 million euros in funding, and they want to demonstrate that the Quran shaped European identity. It's like saying we want to do a project to demonstrate how this pedophile person shaped the identity of his victims in a positive way. It's like
indoctrinate the younger generation.
European identity. These people invaded, slaughtered, and enslaved. But of course, there's networks close to the Muslim Brotherhood involved. Yeah. They're using ideology to rewrite European history, an educational component, and plans to teach the general public, in other words, public indoctrination, school kids, using our funds, our tax money to indoctrinate everybody. Direct links known for their ties to jihad. So yeah, one has to wonder what is wrong and who's funding this and who's behind this.
I think when I looked at that article, Lloyd, what came to my mind was when you look at the attacks that were made after atheism came about in the 1850s, the Bible was under heavy scrutiny for many reasons. I think when you look at Islamophobia, a fear is already being set up that you can't question the origins of the Quran, the Hadith, and Muhammad. So in academia, there's a fear factor now that's beginning to creep in because it's hidden under the guise of attacking Muslimness or perceived Muslimness. This fear, I think, in my perception, is something that is to try and protect any investigation into the origins of the Quran, Muhammad, and the Hadith. I think it's almost like a detour or something to create people to look away from that, or a deflection from any investigation into Islam, and just look at it from a positive point of view. Though if anybody can find any positive influence from the Quran, please let me know.
You know, I just wanted to touch quickly on the last subject you were saying about the Christmas being cancelled. Our London mayor has gone one extra. I seen a video earlier with the nativity scene set out in London, and Mary is actually praying on her knees, prostrating in front of the baby in a manger, but prostrating and all the others are doing the same that are in this scene. They've kind of Islamized the nativity set, which again is just another attack. Well, I think is worse than cancelling Christianity. This is just a punch in the face to Christians, those who live with and appreciate Christian culture and values, and we're just being attacked by our government directly. This is like a message from us to you, and if you say anything or dare come back in a reply, we'll lock you up. And that's the way it is.
Was their depiction of Jesus in the manger actually speaking? Because that's what they would have, you know, when the words coming out. Was there any captions of any words coming out? The thing is there, Ron, in my experience as a Muslim, or as an ex-Muslim rather, is that this is a classic technique of what they call, it's a form of trying to lessen or break you down via compromise. It's a bit like saying, having a discussion with a Muslim, and they'll say something like, well, we won't refer to Jesus as the Son of God because we both agree he's the prophet of God, so let's just call him a prophet. So they get you to compromise without you realizing you're compromising your own faith. And that image there of say Mary bowing down to Jesus in the manger would be a form of people being compromised.
Yeah, well, it's known that our teams have their script. I mean, Bob from Speaker's Corner has exposed this. Tommy Robinson's exposed this. Many other people, even GB News, they have exposed that, or the Muslim apologetic side of things, if you like. They go out with these scripted, well-versed, well-rehearsed verses like Jesus was a Muslim, Jesus prostrated, the Bible is corrupt, so on and so forth. And they try and rope you in, if you like. In fact, it's gone even deeper. I mean, they have literally infiltrated our education system to a point where a Muslim imam was able to go into a class and tell a year 6 student that when he's older, he won't be a Christian, he'll be a Muslim. Because he said, I don't want to listen to this or say this or learn about this because I'm a Christian. And the imam turned around and said, well, you got nothing to worry about, because when you're older, you're going to be a Muslim anyway, as Islam will take over. The teacher didn't say anything. The child got in trouble. Not the imam, the child got in trouble. And again, it's just disgusting how they are infiltrating every part of our government, every part of our society. And they're doing it and laughing at us.
Yeah, no, I want to say thank you to Sharon. Thank you very much, Sharon, for that $10 donation. I really do appreciate it. It goes a long way, so thank you. Yeah, this guy, a fake Jew called Vishal Benkold, came in. He's a Muslim, and he's pro-Islamic. It's very odd. You have a pro-Islamic Jew, and we're supposed to believe this Jew. David says Christians prostrated centuries before Islam. Prostration is to lie flat on the ground in the shape of a cross. So you're lying flat down, and your arms are spread out in the shape of a cross. That is not Islamic prostration. And in fact, if you look at the Bible, I think there's 13 different ways that Christians are depicted praying, from sitting, standing, kneeling, lying, walking. So there's a whole.
Have you got Google there? Have you got Google there that you could just do something for me, just to give people an idea? Get Google up. Type in proskynesis.
Yeah, sitting's only become a recent form of praying in the Christian kind of world.
Images. There you go. The third one in. That's a Zoroastrian sequence of acts of obeisance to people that are, depending on the position in society that they were, determining which posture you would adopt. Now, tell me, who prays like that? Who uses like all those postures in their prayers? What Muslims are doing, what Muslims are doing, they're following a form of proskynesis, which was actually a Zoroastrian form of
crazy, yeah, because you can see they do that and they lie down. It's, I mean, you've seen Muslims do this. We've all seen
not only that. If I'm Eastern Orthodox, I'm not a very good Eastern Orthodox Christian, as I got it tattooed on my face. However, I am in the Eastern Orthodox Church, and we do, well, some members, they do prostrate, and they go down 3 times, and they come back up doing the sign of the cross. You can watch the film The Son of God, and you'll see what's his name, Saint Nectarios. That's what the film is about, regarding him and his life. And he does exactly the same thing. And so we know, especially with the Quran as well, the Quran, everything that Muhammad, so say, revealed was actually copied and taken out of different religions, like Christianity, Judaism, Zoroastrianism, paganism, even, and has just been compiled with all of the verses which allow him to do whatever he wants. And that's Islam.
Now, why is Canada wanting to criminalize biblical passages?
Well, this one, when I found this, this for me is actually where things start to get serious, because this will be, in my estimation, this could work in a two-pronged way. One, it could be a backdoor way of getting at the Quran by going after Christianity first, or you're making Christianity a target, but your real target or intention is against Islam, possibly. The other one is left woke ideologies, because when you look at it, everything that we see in the world today, particularly from the cultural Marxist worldview, or the atheist worldview, or should I call them the Darwino atheist worldview, is a direct attack on the Bible. Abortion. Now in the United Kingdom, you can have full-term abortion. In this country now, it's gone through the Second Amendment about state-assisted suicide. Okay, all those things are, and also, and Tavistock are now going to allow 200 children to have gender, hormone suppressants.
Hormone replacement therapy.
Yeah, it was stopped in 2024. Tavistock now have said at the end of November they're going to do 200. They're going to do trials on 200 children. So they've legalized it again. Basically, everything that we're seeing in secular lands today is a direct attack or an inverse attack on the Bible. This could be because when you look at the text of the Bible, for instance, they could go, not anybody uses it anymore. Nobody even really quotes it. But if you go to, say, some of the Leviticus scriptures where it talks about stoning of homosexuals, stoning of men who dress as women, or maybe stoning of men who have sex with an animal, and then you have to kill the animal as well. Now, that could be very problematic if you're a man that dresses as a woman, if you're a man that has sex with an animal, or if you're a homosexual. But you don't see those things in the New Testament, as it were, or the Greek scriptures. But what you do find in the Greek scriptures are where the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 9 to 11, it says, well, men who lie with men, blah, 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 but that's what you were. So it speaks of it in a very negative way. Then you've got the Romans 1 scripture, I think it's around about 22, 23, 24, where it talks about men having sex with, going after their own flesh and working what's obscene. So those texts, as far as the woke left are concerned, are going to be very problematic. So, but then because they're not giving you an exact sort of like list of verses that they say are problematic, and you'll be hate speech if you actually use those biblical texts, they've kind of left it open-ended so they can be very ad hoc with what they consider hate
these
speech.
laws are always vague. I mean, look at the anti-terrorism laws used against people who tweeted, or constantly against Romy Tobinson, so you just see that happening. It's
I've had prevent at my door.
This guy.
Oh,
sorry,
wow. I said I've had prevent at my door. I've already had to do 3 voluntary meetings, and
oh my God.
all they do is they hire a room at the taxpayer's expense, put you in front of someone who is a so-called former far-right person, and then they'll talk about football with you for about an hour. They won't talk about any of the subjects that concern you or ask you anything in relation to Islam, politics, any kind of religion whatsoever. They won't even talk about or ask you what your opinions are or your political beliefs are. They'll just talk about football or something. It's a pointless system, which is a waste of the taxpayers' money.
Wow, I had no idea. I once had an online talk with a guy from Prevent. He was like he's a very senior researcher at Prevent. He was some university professor or whatever, and I started talking to the guy online. Was when I was doing this course through the university on counterterrorism, and I was chatting with the guy, and I started asking him questions about Islam and what they do, and the guy was clueless. I mean, he was genuinely clueless, and I was like, how can you be effective when you are unwilling to ask any of the hard questions, and besides that, you have no idea what's going on anyway.
They need a big wake-up call. I mean, if anything they speak about Islam in a negative way, if anyone, especially in the civil services, so to speak, then they fear they may lose their job, let alone be sent to prison or do anything. So the best thing for them is to either speak very highly of it or attack those who speak against it. That's the only thing they can do.
Right. So does this mean now with jury trials, does this mean it's the start of kangaroo courts?
Well, the difficulty you've got with that, the most obvious thing to consider is that when you remove trial by jury, you're not going to be judged by your peers. I've been in court a few times in the 90s for being a naughty boy with my fists. And this is actually more fearful than that many people realize, because as we move forward with the politicization of, say, the office space at work, the legal system we can see is already becoming very politicized. If you're looking at the influence of the Qatar Arab dollar as well, if you're looking at things like what is defined as Islamophobic, you're then going to be faced with a judge that has already had a presupposition implanted in him as to how to treat certain people, certain crimes. If you're not going to be judged by a jury anymore, you're going to be judged by a man who's already heavily politicized and tainted in a certain way to go in a certain direction. And I think that they know this. That's why I remember Mark Thomas, who I had on my channel for many years. He once said in one of his episodes, if the legal system wants to remove a law, it's probably because it's advantageous to the public. That's why they want to remove it. And I see this as a classic example of the legal system are aware that if you're judged by a peers, particularly now, because this will all focus.
But they want to railroad people who say bad things on Twitter.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going. This is all about social media and opinions. That's where it's going.
Right, and of course, because a lot of black people, because a lot of Muslims, because scads of Muslims, and a bunch of people who came over on boats have been raping little girls, they decided to send little white boys on courses to tackle misogyny.
This is I'm actually perplexed with this one, right? Because if anybody, I mean, Ron, you might remember this. Wasn't there some kind of drama that was made recently, in recent years, where one of the guys that was in Snatch, he did about a young lad that was, I think Keir Starmer said it was more of a documentary than a drama about a young lad that was misogynistic or racist. I forget what it was.
What's it called?
Panorama, sorry.
Hold on.
Yeah, I can't recall which one you're referring to.
This one is the Adolescence. This is the Netflix drama.
That's the one.
Adolescence.
Yeah,
Keir Starmer called it a documentary. Now, even though the statistics obviously show, right? So we need to tackle the emerging and growing problem raised by the new TV drama Adolescence. They made a young white boy the person responsible for massive amounts of migrant rape.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I haven't seen Adolescence, so I can't really comment. I haven't even witnessed a trailer or any short clip, so I don't know what that is. What I will say on this subject, though, is I hope to imagine that they won't exclude the Muslim boys that are in our curriculum when it comes to this, because this could be,
what are the chances of that happening?
Something that goes in favor for for us, because we know that misogyny sits right at the heart of Islam, that a woman is not as equal as a man. In fact, she is half the value of a man.
Hello, is that an event? This guy just said something Islamophobic. Yeah, you need to. He called Islam misogynist. I think that's Islamophobic. Yeah. Can you?
The irony in all of this is, as Rowan is mentioning there, is that the witness, the testimony of one man is equal to two women. If a woman walks in front of a man while he's praying, including a dog and a donkey, she's equal to the dog and the donkey, because all three of them annul the man's prayer. A man can have up to 4 wives. He doesn't need enough to have the permission of the other 2, 3, or 4, or 2 or 3, first 1, 2, or 3, if he wants to marry anymore. Muhammad himself said that there are going to be more women in hell. You're allowed to beat your wife. You can divorce your wife. She can't divorce you unless she goes to a Sharia court. Then you start thinking about things like honor killings. Honor killings seem to happen when men are murdering girls in Islamic. Then you think about female genital mutilation, where this country has over 24 NHS clinics specializing in repairing the damage of female genital mutilation, even though this court, the law in this country actually it's illegal to practice female genital mutilation, but I have yet to find one person convicted, because where are they doing it? They're not doing it in hospitals. They must be doing it on kitchen tables in people's houses, practiced by people who are not medically trained, that anybody could be medically trained to perform a female circumcision. But even so, you know, all of this now, I know. Then let's also add on there forced marriages, consanguineous marriages, where people are forced to marry their own cousins. Then you've got children that are being kidnapped and told to go to another country, thinking that they're going to visit a family, when in reality they're being forced marriage with a man that they don't even know. But we won't talk about that. Those things that we know are inherently within the culture of Islam. We won't talk about those things because that's Islamophobic. But what we will do is we will tackle young men that are we consider misogynistic because they're young and white.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're afraid. They will tackle the people that are not a problem, that won't respond, that can't respond, that are too weak. It's like, for instance, you have a group of, say, 20 Muslim boys beating up a white English boy. They'll arrest the white English boy because that's easier than having to deal with the 20 violent Muslims. It's simple. That's how it works.
but the thing is, wasn't there a comment already coming out recently that the prison population needs to reflect the demographic of the country? So if the country is, say, 85% white, then the prisons have got to be 85. The prison population has got to be 85% white, leaving only a 15% of the mixed black, brown, yellow demographic. If that's the case, then that would mean that you're going to have to convict more white people of crimes and let off more brown, black people of crimes then, in order to match the demographic that's represented by the country. Does that even make sense?
No.
So not only are you not going to get your job under DEI, where it's not meritocracy, you're going to get a job if you're disabled, if you're trans, if you're Muslim, or if you're black, or if you're brown. Now in the same thing with prisons, it's going to work the opposite way around. You're going to go to prison because you are white, but you won't go to prison for committing a crime if you're brown, or if you're tranny, or if you're black, or if you're a Muslim.
Yeah, hey, I've got about 400 tabs open that we need to get through. So if we might want to focus a tad more on the, this one. Where did this happen, Thunderous? This was in Ireland, I think, right? It's guarded there. So.
Yeah, this was happening in Ireland. A horrific murder of a young child in front of his mother. You know, nothing to see here because, you know, the thing for me on this one is, what kind of punishment do these kind of men get now when they go to prison? Because once upon a time, if they went into prison in this country, you're getting hurt by somebody inside the prison. They won't tolerate any of this. But now, because the populations in the prisons in this country are so full of Muslims, the chances are he'll be heralded as a hero, and his prison sentence won't be in any context the way that we understand it, because he's just going to be with other family in prison.
Wow, crazy! That's horrific.
They run the prisons. They have all the jobs. Even the prison staff themselves are too scared to do anything about it. They just let them do what they want to do.
Look, this is absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd. So already we're going to go for assisted suicide now, or state-assisted suicide. Look at the list below of the tests they're going to do before they actually give you the death sentence, or the death injection, or whatever means they can use. There's a certain list of features there. If you're, let me just get up on my screen as well so I can read it.
Yeah, I've made it bigger. I've made it as big as it can get.
Look at the list there. They're going to test you for if you're before they give you the state-assisted suicide.
They're going to give you a pregnancy test before they kill you.
Yeah, if you're a man, they're going to give a pregnancy test to a man or somebody, or anyone over the age of 80. People who cannot even become pregnant are going to get a pregnancy test. Individuals are unable to produce a test due to their illness, or individuals within days or weeks to live. Can anybody make sense of this?
This one is men.
Well, I can, if you want to put it in terms of the left-wing Labour government, yeah, because they can't identify what a man or a woman is. They don't know what a man or a woman is. Even Keir Starmer, the leader, doesn't know what a woman or a man is. So in their eyes, they're not too sure. But obviously for us, it's a bit confusing because we have science on our side and also God. It is hilarious. This is why I'm saying that what they're doing by doing things like this is pushing people even further to their limits of what they can actually, you know, control anymore, because this stuff is just nonsense, absolute nonsense.
Crazy stuff. Yeah, and then another one, assisted dying. I mean, this is just cheapening life. This is like jihad against people. I don't know. Canadians with non-terminal conditions sought assisted dying for social reasons.
Yeah,
it's genocide.
Yeah, this started a couple of years ago when they threw it out there about people wanting to be to allow some form of euthanasia because of homelessness, also mental illness, depression. There was the famous girl in Belgium who saw the terrorist attack at the Belgium airport. She saw her friend getting killed, and at the age of 23, Belgium gave her state-assisted suicide for PTSD. They killed a 23-year-old girl because rather than offer her help and assistance to deal with the trauma that she was dealing with, they gave a state-assisted suicide. A 23-year-old girl.
It's disgusting.
Make sense of that. Make sense of that.
That is really shocking. You have to wonder.
Well, yeah, and if you add that as well with Britain as well, 48% of pregnancy end up in abortion. We are literally, if you add this with assisted dying and everything else that has happened during COVID, that has come to light as well, especially like the things that have actually come out, let alone the things that haven't yet, with Dr. Fauci.
So how about you stop aborting kids, and then you don't have to import people on boats?
This is why I say. This is why I say people. You know, and I've said this to yourself, Lloyd, over the years many a time. This is why I think, and I firmly believe, Darwin atheism is by far the most toxic ideology, the most dangerous ideology ever to have been conceived, and for people to adapt and follow. I once heard an illustration by a guy that came from Africa, and for me, it's quite fitting in the way that we are. He said, in Africa, when you're dealing with Satan, he's punching you in the face. He goes, but when we look at you brothers in Europe, he's sitting with you on the sofa with his arm around you.
Yep.
And I thought that's a very fitting illustration as to what we have to deal with in Europe. Well, our situation in Europe is far more serious than what persecution is in other countries.
Yeah, 100%. Like as I was saying, like, if you include like the 48% abortion rate, the assisted dying bill, what they did during COVID, we are literally killing our own people. It is a genocide committed by our own government on our own people. It's got to stop, and we are being replaced by what? Those from the third world that have different cultures, different belief systems than we do. If we're not careful and we do not do something soon, and I'm not talking 2029, I'm talking we need to do something within the next 12 to 18 months, then we could potentially lose our identity and everything with it. It will be gone. People need to wake up, and they need to wake up soon.
And this is another issue here from America's Hat, place known as Canada. In medicine and more, Canada blazes a trail to authoritarianism. And this is interesting. For instance, Canada is leading the charge because you're supposed to have religious freedom and so on. Even though the Canadian Charter explicitly guarantees freedom of conscience and religion, Ontario doctors with a religious objection to euthanasia or abortion were denied conscience protections, thereby requiring them to kill or refer to a doctor they know will kill. Why are doctors breaking the Hippocratic oath, do no harm? You know, and if they didn't like it, the judge said they must get out of medicine.
And look at the figures. Not coincidentally, some 16,500 people were killed by doctors and nurse practitioners in the country last year. When I read that, I couldn't believe I was reading that. It's a form of youth. Let's call what, you know, when you look at the 3 or 4 things that we've discussed as far as Canada and Europe are concerned, with reference to abortion, state-assisted suicide, and this bill now, at what point is it not eugenics? At what point is this not eugenics?
No, it is eugenics. I mean, this is Nazi eugenics. I mean, the Nazis did this, as was said earlier.
Yeah.
The charter is toothless, says Corin. Yeah, the charter is completely toothless. Yeah. So, I mean, this is shocking to see. So Qatar is using $1 trillion to secretly destroy the West. I did not watch this interview. This could be. So, do you want to tell us anything about this, Thunderous?
Yeah, I mean, I watched the interview. I think the only thing I really walked away from, because it presents nothing new that you've already discussed, only you did it a couple of years ago, mate. And this goes back to the point I was trying to say at the beginning of the show, when you could do a comparison to, say, for instance, all the shows that all the other apologists and polemicists are doing in defense of the biblical narrative and maybe exposing Islam. If you was to look at their material, most of it gets repeated, regurgitated, and they fall back on, or is completely irrelevant, or has no influence or import as to what's going on today. This, though, people are now talking about it in interviews. Yet you covered this years ago. It's the same thing with the Sharia law now. You covered this years ago. These are the important talking points that people need to understand. These are the things that we need to be talking about and discussing, not flipping men of al-Zut.
I mean, what if Qatar is funding this stuff like in Canada?
Exactly that. You have to draw the conclusion that when you look at, say, the £10 million that's being given to the European Court for trying to identify the Quran's impact on Europe in a positive way, you've got to look at things like this and see where is all of this money being dispersed to.
Yeah, I'll just read this. Qatar's unprecedented $1 trillion influence strategy is reshaping Western institutions, destabilizing democracy, and empowering ideological movements that openly oppose Western values. It's a 50-year warning. The ideological project rooted in the Muslim Brotherhood has now reached a critical midpoint. The West is facing a long-term soft power campaign by a mixture of political influence, financial investments, cultural outreach, and elite partnerships. And of course, they've already stolen the universities, all of which have gone unchallenged. Qatar has become the single most powerful force funding and shaping these networks, from major universities to media platforms, to political institutions. I mean, look how they've bought Tucker Carlson. I mean, he was on stage recently going, Muslims are great, and why do you guys give Muslims a hard time? Those poor, misunderstood artists. You really need to hug a Muslim today. And he goes on, so this episode exposes how influence operations work in practice, not through dramatic takeover, but incremental cultural and institutional shifts that policymakers fail to recognize. And he speaks of the Red-Green Alliance, radical left, and the Islamist political groups. Yeah. And they infiltrate academic spaces, activist networks, and the public discourse, using the help of Western leaders who underestimate.
That's correct. And in terms, in regards to Tucker Carlson, he, funnily enough, he turned around in one episode and actually said, well, we need to reconsider who our allies are. And it goes, is Israel really our ally? He says, in fact, I think we should, we've got more in common with Qatar and Doha, and we should be, celebrating Qatar more and maybe rely on them as our ally than Israel.
Yeah, they're a major partner of his, aren't they? I mean, they're a major stakeholder in his network, so maybe he's sold out. Maybe he sold his soul, right?
100%. And same could be said with Candace Owens and other people like Nick Fuentes, and who are on the scene and getting a name for themselves right now.
Yeah, Candace Owens has lost her mind. This one is shocking. This one, I think, has shocked people. This woman was beaten up by an ex-boyfriend or something, and she was in hospital after being beaten very badly. She sent a text message to a friend of hers, a male friend, apparently was jealous or something. She called the attacker a faggot, and then she got arrested for calling the guy a faggot. The man who beat her up is out free.
Yeah. How many times have we seen this, guys? How many times have we seen where the perpetrator of a more serious crime has basically received a lesser sentence, if a sentence at all, in comparison to the person that's retaliated in with just mere words?
In Germany, a woman who called Muslim rapists who gang raped, I think, a 15-year-old girl, she called them pigs. She got arrested and charged, and she had a worse conviction than the actual gang rapists.
That is, wow. This is what I mean. This is why a spiritual crusade, and this is also why you can see why the British public are at the verge and on the tipping point of civic unrest. And if nothing is done to tackle this, and people keep getting locked up, who I would consider to be martyrs in our cause, then it's going to go. It's going to spoil. And when it happens in one country, the rest will follow suit. That's what we'll have. In fact, we've seen in Bulgaria and Chile how much power the people have. And if we see other countries repeat what they have done by having a mass opt-out, just completely give up, stand outside the parliament, stand outside the government, and just stay there, stay put until they give up their power, then, you know, if we don't do that, then this is going to keep happening. But I genuinely do believe we are going to head down that route where we will get this Labour government out before any election.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to make it their whole term, right? Because even Starmer looks like he's on shaky ground. So, you know, but let's see. I mean, the UK, I mean, you guys change prime minister, what, every 15 minutes?
Yeah, it's a normal thing nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, Tommy Roberts, a grooming gang victim, had to write an apology letter to her rapist because she called him a Pakistani pedophile. There you go.
Right, I was going to finish on this one, but you brought it up now. So because we're approaching the holiday period, everyone, let's all go to Marks and Spencer's and buy some toilet paper. And let's make Marks and Spencer's toilet paper great again.
Yeah, they denied that they sell toilet rolls imprinted with the Arabic word for Allah after Muslims called to boycott. Why would you even do that? It's like, please, man. I mean, do you remember they were claiming that socks sold at Marks and Spencer's a few years ago had Allah printed on them? Socks?
Yeah. Well, let's make toilet paper great again. I mean, great to the last wipe.
This is Marks and Spencer's toilet paper. Whatever it is, get some. Get some. And yeah.
I'm going to definitely go and get some of that. It will beat the Palestine one that I have already.
Wow. Okay, so this is interesting. Migrants staying at Canary Wharf Hotel arrested after walking into blind woman's flat.
Yeah,
again,
I think this is
again.
I think this is this the same one or a different one where a guy?
The other one walked into this woman's house and the two daughters were there. That's the other one. This is a new one.
So I think this one was, I think something came out in the media as well stating that it's a civil matter, not a legal matter, if no damage was done, if no burglary had taken place, and if nobody was harmed. So then it becomes a civil matter, not a legal matter.
That was a lie, because you're still trespassing. You're entering someone's house, and how do you know he wasn't threatening to do something?
Exactly that, because there was no threat from the legal standpoint. I think it was Black Belt Barrister that commented on this.
He commented, no, they completely misinterpreted the law. They were just, but nothing happened, so it's fine. It's like, so
it's okay then. But if I did it, I would be arrested for burglary or conspiracies for burglary.
Yeah, because you see, this goes to the other things that you hear, like Afghani men not knowing that rape is wrong.
The judges actually forgive that. They're like, but it's his culture. He doesn't know any better. You're like, why are you allowing men who don't know that rape of children is not okay?
Yeah. Why are they allowed to walk our streets and live near schools and surround our communities? But of course, the lefties will say, welcome. Let's welcome those. They're actually vulnerable, and we should look after them. They're weak people. This is an argument I had put to me only a week ago, that they're vulnerable beings and that they have just escaped the most horrendous conditions that we could never imagine in our lives, because we are so fortunate and superior that we have to, really hate ourselves that much that we should bow down to these people that are coming here and kiss their feet, whilst giving them all the luxuries that they already get. It really takes the piss. Excuse my French.
No, it does. Yeah, I've just said worse on the channel. Yeah, Gazan children have arrived to a specialist National Health Service treatment, which means you can't get treatment. But not only that, as far as I recall, they can bring their mother, their father, their sister, their brother, their grandparents, their uncle, their neighbor down the street, their dog, the cattle, and then they can ask for a house, a phone, a TV, free electricity, free medical care, free internet.
They've been coming here for years. Do you know? Go on.
I was just going to say on this, want us to bear in mind, there was some recent footage revealed of people going into dentists and filming asylum seekers in dentists in the waiting queue, already ready to get assistance from the local dentist. But the dentist said it was a private practice, so they were ushered out on a couple of occasions, right, where this is done. Very much like when the people walking in hospitals and they were empty during COVID, saying there was no panic or no there was no rush. However, when you think about it, because of the NHS waiting list, there has been a severe uptake in the amount of people performing their own dentistry at home to deal with the problems they've got with their gums and their teeth. And yet people that have come in from other countries that have not contributed to the system are getting preferential treatment.
Yeah, exactly that. And in fact, they were selling during the pandemic when people were in lockdown, dentistry kits. There was actually the healthcare part of our economy come up with these healthcare kits where you could remove your own teeth. People were pulling their own teeth out, for heaven's sake. It's absolutely ridiculous. But in regards to the Palestine thing, that's not new. They have been coming here for a very long time on the quiet. In fact, I was at my local leisure centre last year, around this time last year, when 20 of these Palestinian, I would say they're teenagers, came in, started, some of them were getting undressed right by the pool, not in the changing rooms, just jumping in and out the pool. Whistles were blowing by the lifeguards. They were ignored. They were running riot, running up these stairs. This was during a lane swimming class. So the British that were just ordinarily swimming in there in a white minority village are thinking, what on earth's going on? And they're running then through gyms, being chased by all the staff, trying to get them out. And they come up to me at the end whilst I was about to leave in my car, asking me if I had a carrier bag. And I asked where they were from, and they said, oh, we've just come over here from Palestine. This was last year. This was when the war was going on. And I said, how many of you are there, and where are you staying? And they said they were staying in this university campus, not far from where I live, and that there was 1,500 of them in total. So it goes to show you there's been things going on that we don't know about for a very long. Yeah. It's not just
like the Afghanis they flew into the country.
Yeah, and the Afghan. Well, that came out luckily because
we flew in like 25,000. Except they didn't explain they would also fly in up to 14 family members per Afghani. So when you have 25,000 and you multiply by 7 to 10 to 14, then you actually have like 300,000 people. Or more. And
the excuses we are given is that they were translators or that they participated in helping us during the war in Afghanistan. Oh, but now it's only now that they're coming here to escape the Taliban. Okay.
The Taliban knew exactly where they were. The Taliban didn't care. Honestly, the Taliban, it's just a bunch of stories. I mean, Hope in Christ is a Swedish girl. I read about this, was recently R-word by an Ethiopian Momo. But they couldn't deport him because the judge said the crime didn't last more than a few minutes, so it was okay.
Wow.
It was only a few minutes. How about I tell you what, I get someone I don't like. I'm sure there's people on social media that I beat them over the legs for like 6 minutes with a baseball bat, and the judge will go, look, it was only a few minutes. It's okay. Lloyd, you're free to go. These people are just whingers and moaners. Sounds like a plan to me, right?
Maybe if you say your shahada in court, you would get away with it.
Maybe you're right.
Just say the shahada. That's salvation.
You know.
That's what I would get my barrister to do. In his defence, Your Honour, he has reverted back to Islam.
Hold on. Yeah, I remember a girl arrested for pepper spraying rapist.
Wow.
Let's have a look. If I can find this.
There was a lot of
there
was a lot of controversy last week, Lloyd, because there was a case where 2 Afghani men were jailed for a sexual assault on a young girl, and the court were too scared to publish the footage that the girl had recorded in case of a civic unrest. They were that worried.
A riot. Yeah, they were afraid it would start a riot. So maybe that footage needs to be leaked.
Exactly.
That's the one where a woman actually asked the girl if she was all right and still did nothing about it. You can imagine that the woman probably had a concern initially, and then right at the last moment thought this could be even a problem myself if I did something about this.
Yeah, so she's attacked.
That's fair now. It reminds me of what Esther Ranson did about 15 years ago in this country. She did a final documentary where she had two children, a boy and a girl, that were actors, one inside a shopping centre, one outside, and she asked the actors to act as if they're very distressed. And what she did, Esther Rantzen did, was actually film people, walk past the children. They could see the children were distressed, and then they walked off and didn't offer any assistance. And then the filming crew got up with the people that walked past and asked, why did you walk away when you could clearly see two children were distressed or a child that was distressed? The response was unanimous every time. We did not want to appear to be like a paedophile or a threat to the child. That's
accused.
Yeah, that's the state where we are now with Islam, where we could actually see something where a Muslim is committing a crime, but there might be, and we've seen this already, the rape gangs is an example, where some people were actually clearly in on it, and some people were probably guided, don't do anything because it could store up racial hatred, and some people probably did genuinely think, if I say something, I could be perceived as Islamophobic or racist.
Crazy. Yeah. Although there's a few, there's not too many. Was this about the Hindu man lynched?
Yeah, this one was, this is the guy that was burnt alive. And this goes back to many situations that we've already seen in Pakistan where a perceived blasphemy causes civil unrest and a brutal murder takes place. Yet it's not portrayed in the media anywhere. So a man was burnt alive for a perceived threat, or so it's not a threat, it's a perceived blasphemy on Islam.
The footage is absolutely grotesque, and I really do discourage anyone from watching it because it is absolutely horrific.
Disgusting. And they bring these people into the country and they think that they're going to get doctors and lawyers. I mean, disgusting.
And Pakistan don't exist neither. It's always been India.
Yeah. And what is this about child protection services? Oh, no. It's not CPS, not child protection services. It's something else. Oh, Hamid Koski was acquitted from, this is the guy that burned a Quran outside of the Turkish embassy. Yeah. He was then attacked by someone, a diplomat or someone at the embassy or a clerical worker. The guy brought out a knife and tried to kill him. And that man has never faced charges. The attempted murderer with the knife has never faced charges, but this guy went to court, but eventually got acquitted by his team, by his legal team.
So first off, in 2009, I was caught in possession of a bladed article, which was 2 inches long. It was a pocket knife, Swiss Army pocket knife on a key ring. So it was on my keys. I had done nothing wrong, and just because I had it on my person when the police did a stop and search, when random stop and search were taking place, because I was wearing the wrong clothes, I suppose. They asked me, "Did you have anything on you? You shouldn't have." I said, "I don't know. Do you consider this?" And they did, and I got a 2-year suspended sentence for my first ever offence. Yeah, this man, he can carry a blade that is a lot bigger, maybe a lot sharper, actually use it or threaten to use it and walk away with absolutely nothing.
Yeah, but you got to remember, Rowan, that when the police see Muslims with weapons, drop your weapons off at the local mosque, mate.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. I've uploaded that video, that very video that got my previous channel removed. I got 3 strikes for the same video I have just managed to upload on my channel again now, and didn't get any strike for it. I was testing the water to see, and it was literally just because I was exposing the other side of the narrative that the mainstream media wasn't showing.
Look at the size of this knife.
Exactly. It's disgusting.
Incredible. Look at the size of that thing. And
there's bigger ones that they walk around with, and they can walk straight past the police. There's many videos of them doing so, and they get away with it. Yeah. They get away with it.
I don't know if you would agree with me, Rowan, right? But look, I'm 57-year-old dude. I was around, as a young man in the 80s and 90s, as you were, clubbing and things like that in this country. In those days, we had hard men or tough guys. They worked on the door. You knew they were involved with the football and such. In my estimation, I'd just like your opinion on this. In my estimation, that generation of tough guys and hard men that are about my age now, or say 45 and older, have not been replaced. I think what's happened is that the children that they gave birth to are just basically thugs, you know, that are probably dealing or whatever. And simultaneously at the same time, when I was growing up, you'd find squaddies, ex-squaddies going into the military, going into the police after they left military service. It was a natural progression from one sort of civil duty to another civil duty. So you had trained men, fit men, disciplined men, savvy men as well, because they, you know, they worked with lads, so they knew what lads were like, as it were. But now, instead of taking on, say, ex-military to go into the police, they're just taking college recruits. So what you're seeing is the escalation in 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds that are doing adult crimes, as it were, stabbings and brutal crimes, street robberies and such, with the police lowering their standard of ability, where you look at some policemen now and you're thinking, who the heck can you arrest? How are you going to stop anybody? You don't look capable. I'm 57 years old now, and I look at some policemen and I think, I could iron you out if I wanted to. You don't look that much.
Look at what happened in Australia. The police station was literally 4 minutes walk from that bridge. The police took, what, 20 minutes to get there?
Oh, yeah.
And then on top of that, they were hiding behind the cars, and they showed these two women useless.
Yeah.
Well, but then again, those guys weren't Muslim. That was Mossad, okay? That was all premeditated. It was Israel's plan. Don't forget that. That's the narrative going around in the Islamic community right now.
Yeah, I would say on that one, the police station 4 minutes away does raise some interesting questions, and I think some of the way that the police acted also raised some interesting questions. I'm not trying to be conspiracy theorist there. I'm just saying there are some interesting questions that could be asked in that whole situation.
There are questions being asked already of them with the grooming gangs. However, I believe that,
and I would believe that there are. It wouldn't surprise me, and I've said this to Lloyd several months ago as well. That when you look at, and this came to my mind when Donald Trump was being interviewed by Joe Rogan, and Donald Trump mentioned about 200,000 children going missing over the border when Biden was in power over those 4 years, because the the border requirement of children proving via DNA being proven that they were with a family member was actually removed. However, 200,000 children have gone missing in America. That's what the claim was. Then you add up all the people in the BBC and in pop and in the media that have been arrested for downloading child porn. Then you look at the Muslim grooming gangs. Okay, there seems to be a pattern of children being the victims. Now, going back to the Pakistani Muslim grooming gangs, because of their consanguineous nature of the community, where everybody's bloody related, right, via blood, excuse the pun, that it wouldn't surprise me that if the Pakistani community were used as procurers of children for maybe people in higher office as well, because it seems that councillors, politicians, police, judges, social services, a lot of people knew what was going on. I find it incredible to believe that this could have gone so far as it did, okay, without certain questions or people wanting to say something about it. So, and because the nature of the Pakistani communities, they will not grass on each other because it's family, because you've got a blood tie, okay?
And Islam as well prevents you from
so. exactly that. So I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist here. I'm just saying it wouldn't surprise me, and I say it wouldn't surprise me because of the sheer volume. I mean, Ukraine has its own problem of children going missing during the war. That's also coming to the fore now in certain media circles. We're seeing, if you like, a systematic attack worldwide on children. Now, that can sound far-fetched to a lot of people, but I will just counter this. If you go to the biblical narrative and you accept that the biblical narrative is the inspired word of God, as I do, and as I'm sure you two gentlemen do, you've only got to go to places like, say, Chronicles, 2 Chronicles chapter 1 to 17. So, no, 2 Chronicles, I forget what the chapter was, but I think it's 32, 1 to 17. It's where Manasseh is installed as king. And he does some very, very, very bad things. And some of them were actually sacrificing his own children to the god of Molech. Okay. That was clearly going on in the times of the nation of Israel. The Canaanites were known for sacrificing children. The Aztecs were known for sacrificing children. If we are living in the last days and we take the biblical narrative as truth, what makes people think then, if you're a supporter of the biblical narrative, that makes you think that child sacrifice has stopped? It may have changed in some way, but children are still...
Well, Islam is human sacrifice. If you think about it, jihad is human sacrifice.
Abortion is human sacrifice. I've got a paper on by some I can send to you where they've actually linked abortion as a form of child sacrifice. You could even put it down to where a woman who has an abortion for the sake of her career, that's a child sacrifice for the sake of her career. That's how they've underlined it.
Yeah. I want to end off, it's been like an hour and a half. I thought maybe we can do this one. Do you want to tell us a little bit about this? Anti-rape pants with a mechanism for girls. This thing, I mean, seriously, are they? This supposed to be untearable, unrippable? What's the story here?
I think that there's various forms of anti-rape pant that's coming out. Now, the way I looked at it in a humorous way, because the problem is if she got stuck and she needed a pee or poo, that could be a problem for her. But the thing for me was, well, how close is it to the truth to make them think they can get away with a piece of comedy? Because comedy is normally predicated on a reality, an exaggerated form of reality, or to heighten a certain political point. So for me, this was a case of, is there we used to have chastity belts in the past when men went off to war, leaving women on their own. So are we living in a new age now of chastity?
Well, to me, I've seen this, and I think what they do is, they punish those who are not Islamic or not likely to be the perpetrator. So they punish who's likely to be the victims and not likely to be the perpetrator. So instead of sorting out Islamic extremism or radical Islamism, we have to deal with armed police at our markets, or what they call these bollards that they put up, diversity barriers. Instead of dealing with the grooming gangs and verses in the Quran or the Hadiths, we have to now get clothes to fit girls that are called anti-sexual assault pants, to avoid the R word because of YouTube. They always target the victims or the likely people to be victims rather than the perpetrators. And at the same time they attack us as well by, we can't say Merry Christmas, it's Happy Holidays, we may offend them. So we are literally seeing an act of war, not just take placed on us by people from a different world, but by our own government as well. And it's things like this which tip people over the edge, these little things.
So maybe you can't take it off because you're locking the belt, but how hard does it look to tear that material? And of course, when Europe didn't have Muslims, they didn't need diversity barriers. They didn't have attacks from their greatest strength.
No, they didn't have to cancel markets neither, or avoid them.
Isn't it amazing that their greatest strength is causing them to have to cancel Christmas and New Year's parties and put up diversity barriers and worry about bombs going off at concerts? Isn't that crazy? Yeah, the problem is Islam. I think the problem is Islam. I think everybody knows.
I've been saying this for years. We keep brushing it under the carpet. The elephant in the room needs to be addressed. Islam is the problem. And we always hear, oh no, it's radical Islam. It's not the moderates are fine. I've got plenty of friends that are moderate. Radical Islam is the snake, and moderate Islam is the snake that the grass hides in. There is no in between. It is all the same. And if you believe Muhammad is the best representation for mankind of all time in essence, then you are just as bad as Muhammad and his companions. And you only have to look at his life, how he lived, to see, and what he taught, to know what kind of man he was. And that's as simple as it is.
That's an interesting point you raised there, Rome, because that's actually a biblical principle found at Revelation 18 verse 4, where the God of the Bible says, "Get out from her if you don't want to share in her sins." Now, that's talking to individuals to get out of Babylon. Well, we can argue about what Babylon is, but for whatever it is, God is asking for people to get out from Babylon, because when he judges Babylon, anybody who's a part of it is going down with it. That's known as communal or community responsibility. And this is what I have been saying for years, what you just raised there, that when you identify as a Muslim, you are basically saying, I have no objection to a 54-year-old man putting his erect penis inside a 9-year-old child. And you're a defender of it, you're a promoter of it, you're an advertiser of it, you're an idolater of such a man who did it. So that's community responsibility to the full. So everything you just said there,
gaslighting us, that those guys are not real Muslims. I mean, we're tired of that. But look, I see a change. People are aware. A lot of people know Islam now, and the public pushback is building, regardless of how it's suppressed or not reported. But the public pushback is there, and something's going to happen. I don't know what, and we don't know when, but something's going to happen, and it is going to be explosive.
It's already began. It's slowly already starting. The fuse has been lit. We're just waiting now. It is a waiting game. And I think, like I said earlier, the government are aware of this. As the Thunderous One said earlier, he probably has the same idea as to what I do, as to what is going to happen. We've already seen these alarms being tested, the national threat alarms on our mobile phones. We've already seen the introduction of lockdown drills in schools all across the UK. We've already seen free contracts for mass fatalities be paid for, actually through Poland, for mass fatality contracts be signed and filled in. And we are now ready and on the cusp of this civic unrest, which we know they'll bring in martial law, lock us down because we've already practiced the lockdowns. They know it, they can do it to us. And once they do that, we've got digital ID. They'll rush that through. They've already warned us about it. And then you have the New World Order, which will then come in and be put into play. That's what I genuinely believe will happen. Digital currency, everything will be digital, and that's it. And I believe democracy is dead now. I don't think there will be a general election.
No, we have to say no to that.
I personally totally agree with everything that you've said there, Rowan. I do believe that everything, because when you look at the whole globe, as it were, everything seems to be aimed at centralization. For instance, when you look at climate change, it's a global problem, but they want to centralize it. When you look at what COVID did, particularly with Davos, they were talking about an education system that could be taught in real time via the internet to all schools around the world.
The people have been pushing back against digital currencies. People have been pushing back against this stuff. And I see the world's going to go back to where you've got multiculturalism, as in France and Germany are not the same. They're two different cultures. We have multiculturalism. Poland's next door. Not like multiculturalism means you all become black. You all have to become Muslim. That's
for me, though, Lloyd, if I can just say, if you go to Revelation 13, it just talk about having the mark of the beast, putting under compulsion all people. I take that as literal. I don't see it as figurative. So I don't want to, cause a schism, but I have to align with Rowan on that one. That I personally perceive everything heading towards a centralization of control. You're quite right when you say democracy is dead. I will say democracy has been dead for about 30, 40 years. We're just seeing it's becoming more apparent now within an obvious that democracy is now dead. I think when you look at politics and the what I used to say was, as a 57-year-old man, though I didn't agree with the politics of, say, the 70s and the 80s as I was growing up and into the 90s, but you couldn't help but turn around and say that the men that were in politics were intelligent men, wise men, academic men. Some of them were respectable men, like Tony Benn as an example, or maybe people like that used to be, the Ben Habibs that we've got today, the Ben Habibs of the past, as well, people who I'd respect.
Most were ex-military.
And now, though, when you look at politics now and politicians, you cannot really take them seriously. They look like cartoon caricatures. So for me, the climate change is global. The digital currency is global. Rishi Sunak in one announcement said, when they're talking about CBDC, he said 7 other countries were working on it at the same time. So that talks to me that there's a plan. When you look at, say, what Keir Starmer said when he talked about with an intro, was it Emily Maitland, where she was asked a question, which one do you prefer, Parliament or Davos? He said Davos straight away without hesitation.
Have you not seen the video by WEF and WHO, which says by 2030 there will be a new world, and it says all about everything's going to be.
Just one thing, I just want to mention one last thing, but I'd like to sort of wind down, and we can plan for January again. You know, this blockade that Trump is running, and I thank Sandra for that. The blockade that Trump is running on Venezuela, right? The Venezuelan government was designated, even under Biden, as the government itself is a drug cartel. Now, I don't know if you guys realize, but way back in the day, even in the 90s, the groups like when the CIA wanted to run black ops, they would fund those black operations using drug money. They would sell drugs, and they would fund these illegal operations, these off-the-books operations, not necessarily government-sanctioned operations, I'll say, through drug money. Now, what happened was, instead of having the CIA to do its own little drug flight so they can pay for whatever little games they want to get up to off the record, you know, like in their own little power fantasies.
Is that out Clinton's airport, where Mina, Texas, where where he was governor, and there was an airport which was known for CIA flights. Yeah,
but what you have now is you've got an entire country, or more than one country in South America, but Venezuela being the case in point. This country is a funnel. It's a laundry for drug money to fund the left, to fund all of the funny business that we see in the world. All of that money is flowing through Venezuela, right? Because this is how they fund it, through the drug money, through and so on. Yeah. So what happens is now you've got them complicit. So all of Soros's money or whatever, a lot of these things that are happening gets funneled through Venezuela. So Trump is blocking off Venezuela, blocking off the oil. He's starving them of money, and he's destroying the drug boats. Why? Because once you cut the money, think about it. What's he been doing the last few months? He's been following the money. And the money trail has led to Venezuela, right? And other countries, right? But once you cripple Venezuela financially, you are starving the Democrats of their illicit funds derived from drug sales. You are starving Qatar of money, also potentially derived from drug sales. Because I can tell you the Muslim Brotherhood, the Taliban, they're all involved through Venezuela dealing drugs. That's black money. So once that's cut off, he's going to be starving a lot of these networks of the funds that they need to survive. So he's attacking the WEF and all these other weird groups. I mean, I don't have all the details, but he's attacking all of these groups by going for Venezuela. It's more than just dealing with Maduro. This is much larger, huge implications.
Yeah, definitely. I agree there. And when we've seen some of the operations, and so much, you'll get some people like Tucker Carlson as well. They're all going, "Oh, I didn't vote for this. You know, I didn't want to see the seas being turned into a red mist. You know, I didn't want these attacks to be taking place on the Venezuelan people and all that." But at the end of the day,
man, I don't trust him anymore. In fact, I long since haven't trusted him. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He's always got this. He's very anti-Semitic. He's him and Candy Owens. They blame Israel for everything. No Jews, no news, type of guy. But I think Trump has got his finger on the pulse with a lot of things. I think he knows what he's doing. Obviously, he has to be a bit careful with how he words his things. But he's keeping his cards close to his chest, most definitely.
Yeah. So guys, let's call it a day, and we can always plan another one in January. Sort of mid to late Jan, we can do another one because it'll be good for me to end here. So Thunderous, any last words? But Rowan, I mean, great to see you. Great contributions, really. Yeah, but good thing we at least, But I think there's reason to be positive. People are aware. People are waking up. Thunderous, your thoughts?
Well, no, it's been a pleasure to speak to yourself as usual, Lloyd, and thank you, Rowan, for joining us this evening. You've certainly added another feature that of our discussion, which is valuable. Hope that whether it's mid to late January next year, that you can join us again and become a feature moving forward in the future, because I think that you do have a contribution that's quite valid for the discussions that we have on this channel. And thank you, Lloyd. Thank you for having me on your show. at least once a month, once every 6 or 8 weeks. Me and you and have a discussion. So thank you for this year and this ongoing bond that you and I have.
Yeah, no, that's good. And don't forget the little presentation we spoke of. So once you get prepped, I'll help you with that.
Yes.
Yeah. So guys, thank you everyone very much for participating. Ron, thank you very much for being here. It's been really good. You have a good contribution. I mean, really, you know a lot, and it's actually really helpful. We need to talk about these things because otherwise we're not exercising our free speech. We're not telling people. It's not always how many, it's who, right? But I mean,
Exactly.
we're doing what we can. We're doing our part at the very least. The rest is out of our hands, but we've done our part.
100%. Well, thank you for having me on again.
Yeah, you're very welcome. So great. Much lave. Yeah, that's a joke that's been going on the channel lately because someone who couldn't spell, we were predicting someone was going to do something and they did, but they misspelled it. So much lave to everyone. We lave you all. I hope, I hope you receive lots of lave this Christmas as well. So everyone,
that's one thing I did want to say is I just want to say wish everyone a Merry Christmas considering the circumstances. And if I could, just one quick thing, I'd like to quickly mention everyone who is waking up and coming together to realize what is taking place, whether you're in the UK or some part of Europe, to unite. Because I have seen recently a lot of infighting. You've got a lot of people who don't like this person or that person. But if anything, we need to put our differences aside, drop our grudges, drop our judgment, come together, unite, and get this sorted, because if we don't, we're in big trouble.
Yeah, so guys, do what you can. Just talk to people. You'd be amazed how much it helps to inspire people, to let them know they're not alone, or it just inspires people to take action. Just saying a word or two, that is taking action. It's not being passive. It's not letting them just rule you. So guys, thank you very much. So Merry Christmas, everyone. I wish you a very safe, very happy, very blessed Christmas and a great new year. And let's turn the tables in 2026. The tide is turning. So everyone, God bless, and we will see you soon.